Welcome to Podcast Answers, the show where I help you start and grow your podcast, all while answering questions along the way. That's right. Today is no different. Today I'm going to be answering podcasting questions and talking to you about social media growth. But hey guys, it has been a while, and I want to take the time to real quick to just talk to you a little bit about just some stuff that's going on in my life. You may have seen that I've been off the air. I have not produced a episode of Podcast Answers for a few weeks. That was really a couple different things, just kind of bringing you personal into my life here. My mother-in-law unexpectedly died a couple weeks ago. She got sick real quick and passed away. And so that's the reason I had been off. I took some time off and took some time just to be with family. So that's why I hadn't done a episode of Podcast Answers in a little bit. So hopefully you've been getting out there and been able to survive without an episode of Podcast Answers the last couple weeks, just because, again, I do apologize. I do wish that I could have been here with you, but again, I needed to take some time to be with my family. So that out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about social media growth and strategies that you can use to grow your podcast. Because let's face it, we all don't want to just be talking to nobody. We don't want to talk to just a single one person. We want to grow our show. That's the one thing that I hear a lot is, how do I grow my show? How do I grow my show? And so one of the ways that you can do that is social media. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that today and talk just a little bit about how you can use social media to grow your podcast. So with that, let's get into it here. One of the first ways is to optimize your social media profiles. Use consistent branding, like your logos, your color, your bios, and your links across all of your platforms. So you may have several different social media platforms. One may be YouTube. That's not really a social media platform, but you may be using YouTube for your social media. You may have Facebook. You may have Instagram. You may have Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called now. You may have TikTok. Make sure that you're staying consistent with your branding all across those. So no matter where somebody sees you, they know that this is your podcast. So essentially, you need to come up with a color scheme if you don't have one. For this episode or this podcast, I use like a purple branding in my background, and so that's how I'm known, is this like a purple type of things for this show. The other thing you want to do is, when you're optimizing your social media profiles, is include a clear call to action. And usually that can be something like listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. I wouldn't say use that call to action in your podcast, because people are most likely already listening on something where they get their podcasts when they're listening to you. So you wouldn't necessarily need to say listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify in your own show for the call to action, because they already are listening to it. But in your social media, they may not realize that you actually have a podcast. They may be thinking these are clips of somebody's show or somebody's whatever they're doing. They may not realize that it's an actual show, it's an actual podcast. So include those call to actions that are clear, like listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you're doing separate content for that, like clipping things out, make sure that you put that in either in an overlay on the video or in the description, something where people know that they can listen to you on your, and give your show name there. So that way they know where to find it. The next thing is pin your latest or most popular episode post first. Pinning it so that way people, obviously some of your episodes are going to be better than others. And so if you have one that's popular based on downloads, based on people that are listening to it, make sure that you're putting that up in front of everybody. On almost all social media platforms, you can pin a post. You can go ahead and pin where you have or wanting something at the very top. Go ahead and do that. That way people know this is your favorite content. This is your best content. It's going to be what you're presenting yourself with. Just think about that first time that you met your spouse, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever your significant other. You try to put your best foot forward, right? You want to do the same thing in your podcast. You want to put your best foot forward, and by your best foot, that's going to be your popular or most latest content. So that way people can see, hey, this show is good, is really good, and you're kind of making a name for yourself as soon as you get there and as soon as you get out of the gate with somebody. The next thing you're going to want to do is create shareable content. Post short video or audiogram clips highlighting key moments or quotes. Audiograms used to be a lot more popular than they are now, but you can use shorts. You can use something like Instagram edits to make some really compelling content. Instagram edits is a separate application that you can download for free from Instagram that allows you to kind of do some light video editing and making your content appealing, visually appealing. So you can do that and have your highlight moments. You know, for me, I'm using Instagram I am using Instagram. I'm going live to Instagram right now, but I'm using Ecamm to do my video recording of this podcast. And so for me, the nice thing about Ecamm is it has dual format mode, which means I can record in horizontal and vertical at the same time. And it's going to be, I can create my scenes for each of them separately. And so I have one that's framed vertical that has a little like highlight around it that I'm sending out to Instagram currently, but I'm also recording that. And so the nice thing about that is that I already have my whole episode as a vertical format. And so what I can do with that is I can actually go ahead and just take it into my video editor of choice, which is Adobe Premiere, and I can chop out specific spots in there. And the great thing about Ecamm is if I say something that I really want to highlight later or copy later or whatever, I can just hit an M on my keyboard, and that's a shortcut to send a marker. And so as soon as I'm done editing the video, or as soon as I'm done posting the video, recording my content, whatever I'm doing, I get a text file that has a marker with a timestamp on it. So it's really easy for me to go back and say, hey, this is some content that I wanted to pull out for later for Instagram. So that's a perfect way that you can use something like Ecamm to mark as you're talking, to mark the content, to mark the timestamp of when you want to go and pull that video out for later and use it for something else like your shorts or your reels, things like that. Also, use visually appealing episode graphics and captions that spark curiosity. That is super, super helpful. It's really easy these days to create episode art. You can go into something like ChatGPT or even Canva has a way to use AI to create art. You can go in and say, hey, my episode was about creating social media strategies for podcast growth. And it creates art for it. And you can use that, just make sure it's visually engaging and doesn't have people that are missing fingers, things like that. You know, sometimes how AI created art does. But you can use that. And use your captions on top of that. I would say, especially if you're posting things for social media like shorts or reels or Instagram, make sure that you're putting those captions on top of it, because a lot of times when you're on your phone, people are on their phone, they don't have the audio turned up. They're just reading the text coming by because they're in a public setting. They don't want to have the audio on. So definitely make sure that you're doing that, because that's going to be a way that you can people can see your episode and see what your content is about. Well, just looking through the thing, and they're going to be apt to listen to it for a little bit. Turn your episode insights into carousel art posts, threads for Instagram X. So again, yeah, just use your content that you're going to be sharing, making sure it's something that's happening in your episode, a quick sound bite type of thing, something that's going to want to make people listen to the full episode. And then you can even link to the full episode or say it, in the reel. You can say things like, for the full episode, go to podcastanswers.com social media strategies. Something super simple like that to be able to take them back to the full episode. So you want to also engage consistently. So the third thing we're going to talk about is engaging consistently, because social media works like that. If you're not constantly posting, they're going to bury your content. So one of the things you want to do is respond to comments and messages promptly. So if somebody sends you a comment or a message, make sure that you're engaging them directly and quickly. One of the things that I like to do is, if someone, especially with Instagram, I like this with Instagram, but you could even do that with Facebook or whatever. When someone likes my page, A lot of times I'll just send them a quick message, and I like to do it over voice. Because again, I'm a voice person. I'm a podcaster. I do that. You could do it with video if you wanted to, but it's really easy if you go into the messages part of Instagram and to just hit audio recording, and you can easily quickly send an audio recording to somebody and say, "Hey, thanks for following the podcast. Just out of curiosity, how did you hear about me? Or what do you, for my case, I could say, what are you struggling with right now while podcasting?" Just something that engages them, because if you engage people, they're likely to become a follower of your brand, of your podcast for life, because you're engaging them and it makes you real to them, not just some big brand. The next thing about engaging is you join relevant groups or hashtags like, uh, you know, hashtag true crime podcast if you're a true crime podcaster, or podcast recommendations or podcasting tips or something like that. There's lots of, I personally am in a lot of groups for podcasters and media productions and things like that. So join those groups, because that's where you can go ahead and collaborate. You can find other podcasters in the same niche. You can be out there and be putting your content in so that people can hear about you in multiple different ways. Because if you just have a Facebook page or an Instagram page, you're not necessarily gonna be able to be heard right away. You may not, it maybe take a while for those recommendations. So if you start collaborating with people, they're going to see your name and your brand and come to come to find you on the group. So join a Facebook group, join, whatever, wherever you can be hanging out with people that are that are like the same things as you do, that you're podcasting about. Also, collaborate with other podcasters or influencers for cross promotion. It's really easy, especially if you're seeing them in the same groups. You can collaborate. You can do an episode together. It's really easy to do a episode, especially with things like Zoom or Ecamm. Ecamm has integration with Zoom and also their own interview mode, so you can easily collaborate with other people. Do episodes really easy with other people. Leverage stories and reels. So I talked about this a little bit earlier, but you can the number 4 thing that we're talking about is leveraging stories and reels, because stories, YouTube shorts, TikToks to post behind the scenes clips or teasers. I really like doing that because when you're looking at me, if you're watching this on video, you're seeing me in a curated nice way. You can see what I want you to see with a nice lighting and all of that. But what you're not seeing is behind the scenes. So it's a great idea to keep people coming back to your show in your social medias by posting things behind the scenes, like, hey, getting ready to do this episode, showing behind the scenes. In fact, you know what, guys, I'm going to take a picture right now and let you see what it looks like behind the scenes. Make sure you check that out at Instagram at Podcast Answers, and that's where you'll see my story for this, where behind the scenes, you're seeing behind the scenes of me actually recording. So the next thing you can do is, again, I talked about this earlier, but using subtitles for your content, because you don't always have sound. People don't always have sound on. So making sure that when you're doing the stories, you're adding subtitles and things like that. Next thing is encourage listener participation. Ask questions in your podcast episode, or even in social media. Run polls, invite user-generated content, share your thoughts on this topic, things like that. So that's really easy to do, especially in social media, because I find that I do this for one of my other podcasts. A lot of times, it's actually been a few hot minutes since I've done it, but I used to do it every Friday, where I would do a Dudes and Dads, which is my other podcast, Dudes and Dads pop quiz. So one of the segments on our show is Dudes and Dads pop quiz. And what that is we are an interview type podcast, and we ask our guest or just a kind of a rapid fire questions that they can't prepare for. So it has nothing to do with the topic that we're talking about, but we ask those questions. And so what I do on Fridays, or try to do, like I said, it's been a while, but I've done a Dudes and Dads pop quiz in my stories, and then because Facebook and Instagram, you can put this overlay on it that's like a question type thing, so they can answer the question that you're asking them right there, and it comes as a direct message. So what I like to do is ask a question, something like, if you could go anywhere for vacation this year, where would it be? And then what I do is I feature those stories. So in Instagram and in Facebook, when someone responds to one of those stickers, it comes as a direct message to you, but then you have an option to reply publicly on that. And so what I do is I hit reply publicly and I record something like you maybe just even be my head nodding or me saying, yes, that's a really good one. And then I tag them in that. And so that they see it. And again, because you're engaging people, they're more likely to come back. They're going to be one of your super fans because you're actually saying, "Hey, I'm real. Andy Lehman is real. I want to respond to you, and I want you to know that I'm responding to you." So that's one of the ways that you can do that. The other thing too is feature listener comments or questions in future episodes too. So that's what this show is all about. I started this show to answer podcasting questions. And so, I for a job, I edit podcasts and I do productions and things like that. And so what I started this is so that people can ask podcasting questions and feel not intimidated, not necessarily have to set up a one-on-one consulting time. While I do that, I can help you one-on-one consulting. That's a paid thing. You pay me and I sit down with you and help you start your podcast. But I started this podcast so that I can answer people's questions in a podcast format. And so what you can do is, especially if you put out things on your social media, I mean, you can ask these same questions in your episodes. You can say, hey, if you have any questions, feel free to comment. Feel free to hit me up on this email address. But the great thing is you can do that on social media because people are more likely to just easily type that in if they're scrolling through their social media and see something from you saying, hey, what's one thing that you struggle with right now while podcasting? And then you can turn that into an episode. That's great for you because you have content. You get content ideas based on other people. You don't have to come up with all your content. People are asking questions that you can just answer. So feature their comments, questions on future episodes. The other thing that I like to do too is I have a voicemail set up. I'm using a Zoom phone. You can call my voicemail 574-501-4945 and you can ask your questions like that. So set up a voicemail. Allow people to turn in with their own voice because you can play that back on the episode. Now, repurpose, reschedule. Repurpose, schedule. That's number 6. Turn your one episode into multiple content pieces, quotes, tips, tricks, mini clips. Your episode, this episode right now is over 17 minutes. I've got 17 different minutes. And I've been talking about this is right now tip number 6 for strategies to help your social media content. But I could break that up into 6 different social media tips. Make them really quick, bite-sized things. Post them throughout the next week because you can schedule. You can use scheduling tools. Instagram and Facebook have Facebook Business. Meta, it's business.facebook.com, which you can schedule your posts and things like that. X or Twitter has ways that you can schedule. So the great thing is you can take all of that content, break it up into small bite-sized pieces, and then post them throughout the week after you've recorded your episode. Keep people engaged. Keep people coming back to your content over and over and over again. Now, what happens if you're not recording video? I'm recording video. I'm doing this live. I'm out to YouTube and Facebook and Instagram right now. But what happens if you're not doing it live? If you're don't want to record video live? Well, you don't have to. You can always just record and post later. So you don't have to go live to those formats. Although I like doing that because it kind of helps my presentation better. I don't have to go back and re-record things because I know I'm doing it live and I can't. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. You could just record video for your own reasons and use it later. You could just hit record on Ecamm if you're using something like Ecamm, which if you want to check out, it's a Mac program, podcastanswers.com/Ecamm. That is an affiliate link, but I 100% use it and wouldn't use anything else for doing my video productions as far as live streaming goes, or just recording. But again, podcastanswers.com/Ecamm if you want to check that out, get a free trial. But you can just record on that. Well, what happens if you're not recording video and you don't want to be on camera? You don't have a nice camera. You can still create audio clips that have a static picture on top of it. You can use a video editor. If you have a Mac, you can use iMovie, things like that. But or anything else. If you want to get into it, you can use Adobe products or whatever if you want to pay for it. But you can just throw your audio in the timeline and then just throw an image on top of that and make it something that's going to be, you could post like that. So the other thing too is we've talked recently about having an email newsletter. Promote across your channels. Share new episodes in your email newsletter and link back to your social posts too. So you can share your episodes, share your links to your episode, whatever, and then go ahead and really super easily link back and share that across your social media, your newsletter, all of that stuff. If you really want to, you could use paid promotion too for key episodes or milestones by targeting interest groups or podcast genres or whatever. The great thing about using things like Facebook ads is you can get really, really, really niche about where you want to promote those to. So if you really do want to spend some money and get paying your Facebook things, you can do that. And you can get really niche about it. You can say things like, I want this to only see people, people who have expressed interest in podcasting and are in 20 miles of me or 60 miles of me, or who like these things or these demographics. You can get really specific with the things that you want to actually have and promote and do when you're doing those ads. So guys, those are 7 quick tips that you can use to make your podcast using social media strategies for your podcast growth. There we go. I will get it out. It has been a while since I've done an episode like this. And again, like I said earlier, I would love to hear you and ask your questions that you have for me. You can call our voicemail line 574-501-4945. And I would love to answer those questions for you, because again, that's what this podcast is about. Guys, I hope to see you next week. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys.
Cool.
Podcasts are cool. That's not the button I meant to hit, though. It seems like I'm definitely out of a saddle here, guys. So with that, I would love to hear what you're doing to grow your podcast. Tell me a little bit more about what you do, what your podcast is. I would love to hear that. Contact me at podcastanswers.com/contact. If you would like to set up a time to go over your podcast, if you'd like to have me help create your podcast, help promote your podcast, edit your podcast, if you just have questions about podcasting, I would love to answer those questions for you. So again, that is podcastanswers.com/contact. Have a great week, guys, and keep podcasting.